Hi, I'm Ed. I'm an agronomist, which means that I work with plants to try and help their nutrition and anything that may stop them from producing the best yields. So one of the ways that we are able to figure out what amounts of nutrients that we use and how do we balance that nutrition correctly for the crop, we take soil samples. And it's easily done where after the crop's off, we go in, we pull core samples and we run that through a lab, and it gives us a reading of how much of the nitrogen and phosphorus, potassium, what kind of pH the soil is, and then that allows us in different areas of the field to fertilize according to that either loss of nutrients that we have in that area that the crop has pulled off, or if it needs to be built up so we can have additional yield. A healthy corn plant is really above the ground a mirror image of the root system we have below the ground. The roots are very responsible for absorbing all the nutrients out of that soil and utilizing the nutrients that each of the farmers apply in the correct proportions to create a very healthy, strong plant that produces a lot of yield. Let's take a look at those root systems now. So with a lot of root system, it's mining the soil of those nutrients, taking up moisture. As it brings in the moisture, it brings in nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium that builds strength into the plant to be able to resist diseases, insect onslaught, anything of that nature that would reduce the yield and reduce the plant's health. I've worked with the Bomke farm for the last 7 years, and when we do get off these great yields, and this is a very good yielding year, we're removing a lot of nutrition in that grain as it comes off the field, whether it's corn or soybeans, and that needs to be replaced so that we continue to have great yields, great healthy plants for the future.
So we'd like to welcome Ed Corrigan to the show now. Thank you for being here, Ed. Welcome.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, so you're the Bomke's farm agronomist. What does that mean?
So a farm agronomist is really the science of soil in being able to optimize the yields that are coming off of each field to assist the grower with as much profit as we can accomplish for him.
So what do you study to be an agronomist? What kind of schooling did you have?
So there's a lot of science, there's a lot of chemistry, there's some crops classes obviously, soils labs, and of course speech class, which I wasn't really good at.
Well, you're doing great so far. In addition to that, I think we also saw in that previous segment where you mentioned chemistry has to be so important. I mean, you mentioned phosphorus. What are the other elements that come into play every day for you?
So nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, we're starting to see sulfur, calcium, magnesium become very important in the production of crops across the U.S.
So the middle school students watching that periodic table of elements, they should acquaint themselves with that, huh?
That's correct.
That'll be helpful. So let's go on here. You mentioned yield, and that that's really what you're striving for, is to increase the yield. Can you just give us another quick definition? What does that mean? What is yield? So
yield is really the production that a grower gets and the harvest that comes off of each acre. And it's what he's able to sell. When he's able to sell quite a lot, he makes more money. So it's really trying to optimize that yield to get good profits.
Great. So you guys are working together all the time. And Brian, I'm wondering, how do you know what nutrients are in your soil that are best for the plants that you're working with?
Well, what we do, we take a soil test. And that soil test is based every 4 years on a 4-year rotation. And what we do, we go out there and we take 5 samples from 2.5 acres area. And when we do all this with GPS technology, so we can actually go back to that same spot 4 years later. And after we get that back from, we send that to the soil lab, and once we get that back to the soil lab, we sit down with Ed and we discuss what we need to change in our program.
So what are we seeing right here? What is that specifically?
So that's an overhead shot of one of the fields, and it's depicting the different colors, depict a different soil type. And by soil types, some of them are more productive than others, so we can arrange the amount of production we expect out of that soil type. The better soil types, we push a little harder, put a little more population, a little additional nutrition. Once we've done that, then we start to take each of the layers of the soil test values of whether it's nitrogen or phosphorus or potassium, and we put it into a colored map, as you see here, and it distinguishes the red being the areas that we really need to apply quite a bit more nutrition. It's quite low, and the areas that are dark green, the nutrition is a lot higher, and so we don't need to apply as much. And that makes for a more profitable and productive yield.
So year over year, really, when you consider that map, last fall when we were here, you kind of took that data, you analyzed that, and now you'll make a plan accordingly for this year based on that, right?
That's correct. You see where the yields were the best, and you can optimize it for this next year's crop of soybeans.
So believe it or not, being a farmer has a lot to do with really taking data, analyzing that data, thinking about how to make a plan, and kind of doing that learning process over and over. Okay. How do you guys work together? We're getting questions about that. Do you live here, Ed, or do you just visit now and then?
Just visit as often as I can.
Okay.
No, Ed and I work quite a bit on the phone, really. There's a lot of things I want to know. There's things he's doing all the time in his plots and research and stuff. So I like to bounce a lot of things off of him and see what we can do to try to tweak that last little bit of yield out of our crop. And it's more or less a good relationship as far as enhancing what we're doing and just trying to make it better. So
it's a lot about decision support. Every day, the Bomkes have to make decisions, and I'm just there as a support mechanism to accomplish, giving them some data of what we're able to accomplish through different production practices, and he picks a practice and then runs with it.
So, I mean, you sound like you're just a coach. You're the farming coach, right?
Coach Ed, that's right.
Coach Ed.
Coach Ed.
So that's great, and it's really important to me to consider that, because when I think about farmers, I might not think that you're reaching out and working with people from different industries to support what you're doing every day on the farm. So it just seems like any career you choose, you have to be able to have those communication skills and be able to work together. Great stuff. Well, lots of other questions coming in. Specifically here, Ms. Paul's class from Mountain View Middle School. And Ms. Paul's class, they have a little situation, okay? We're going to see if we can have your advice support their situation, if you will. They're trying to grow tomato plants, okay? So, this is a common activity. Lots of schools, classrooms will do this kind of thing in their room. But their tomatoes, well, the leaves keep turning brown. So they try to cut off the dead leaves, and then continues to wilt. They're just not sure what's going on. They've been watering it. What else could it be that's keeping that tomato plant from being successful?
So a lot of the issues that happen with a tomato plant are real similar to the crops we grow at the Bomkes. It's all about nutrient balance, and the more balanced the nutrition program is for a particular crop, the better its ability to withstand diseases and insects and deal with being able to put on more fruit and getting additional yield.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sure that relates very much to what you're doing here on the farm every day. So Brian, can you explain what is that process for applying nutrients?
What we do, we put a starter fertilizer on our planter, and that's kind of to give the crop an extra little boost early in the spring. And what you're seeing right now in the film is that's a injection system. We have a little wheel back there with notch blades on it, and that stream coming down there, that's our starter fertilizer. That's nitrogen, phosphorus, and zinc. And we'll put that on just to give the crop a little extra boost to get it out of the ground. And sometimes it goes towards yield, sometimes it doesn't, but it always adds to the bottom line when it's getting out of the ground. You need to have a nice, healthy plant starting off.
So, yeah, it's interesting to me to learn that the nutrients are coming through a liquid form.
Right.
And so what about spacing and things like that? I mean, how do you know where to put it, how deep to put it?
Well, we want to put that injection 2 by 2. We want to stay away from the seed because you can injure the seed. Some fertilizers have a high amount of salt in which could injure the seed. So it's 2 inches aside and 2 inches deep is where we place it at in that particular application.
Okay.
So.
Wow, things I never knew. More questions coming in, specifically about what we were just talking about, kind of bad soil. You mentioned when we showed that map earlier how you might have some soils that basically kind of need to be improved. So the question is it possible to make any soil, no matter how bad, is it possible to rejuvenate it or to make it a better soil?
So I'll take that. And there's always a lot of production capability that you can accomplish with the soil. A lot of it comes back to providing the right amount of water. A lot of our soils are productive enough if we add some nutrition and add water. For those soils that are very good, like the Bomkes have, we don't need to add water. The environment is always usually pretty good, and we just need to balance the nutrition at that point. So The production practices for each soil really involve making sure that we've got water there to bring those nutrients into the plant.
Okay, and we saw a lot of tractors. We've been learning about that kind of technology. Another interesting question though, do you use drones when applying nutrients on this farm?
Well, on our farm, we're just starting to get to that technology. A drone can more or less be kind of like your eye in the sky with a camera on it. And what we could do with that drone, we can scout our crop. We can see if we have areas that are kind of faded color or have stunting in the field. We can go to those areas, we can soil test, we can take a leaf tissue test, we can look and see if we have an insect problem or a compaction problem. So I think in the future, I think drones will be used more and more to help us as an aid to do all those things, to decide what we need to put on that crop to alleviate such things from happening. So.
Well, thank you. I now have a reason to tell my wife for why I
need a
bought
drone.
that
That's
drone.
right.
Well, I might have bought one already, so at least I have an excuse now. So let's go back to our word problem. Again, in the last segment, we challenged the students that if 1 bushel of corn weighs 56 pounds and the Bomke's combine holds 400 bushels, how many tons of corn is in the Bomke's corn hopper? So get those questions in. One last opportunity for you to be able to do so. We're going to go ahead to the answer, but first let me take a look here. We had lots and lots of answers in here. Oh man, we've got tweets out there too. Okay, let's go ahead. There it is. There's the answer. The answer was 11.2 tons. Now, how did we get that? Well, we knew that it was 56 pounds. And so we multiplied that by 400 bushels to get 22,400 pounds. Remembering, if you do, then we need to transfer those units. We'd have 2,000 pounds in 1 ton. So therefore, 22,400 divided by 2,000 equals 11.2 tons. If you had that right, nice work. I'm impressed. So let's go ahead now. We're going to transition to another part of the farm. Your wife, Kathy, spends a lot of time on this, and she's in the background sometimes, but last fall when we were here, she was front and center because she runs the pumpkin patch. So let's go learn a little bit more about the pumpkin patch.